Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success talk show. My name is Rochelle Slay, or Slay Queen Hemingway, CEO and founder of Slay to Success. Slay to Success advises and empowers women professionals, especially women veterans, to step up into their most authentic personal brand to gain lucrative opportunities by focusing on 4 areas: appearance, behaviors, body language, communication skills, and digital presence. Okay. And so slay is the foundation to what we do in here. Slay means to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point, to impress greatly, to dream big and work hard until you own it. It is also an acronym which stands for Universal Life and Leadership Philosophies that resonated with me the most while I spent 30 years in the United States Air Force. Stay ready to be ready, lead out loud, a sense of community, and you are built to last. So as you're coming in, y'all, please make sure that you give me a shout out. Okay, we got River of Life Fellowship. Thank you so much for being here on the live show tonight, because I have a slay amazing guest tonight, y'all. A slay amazing guest that you do not want to miss. Okay. I've had the pleasure of working with him for the past month and a half or so, and we're going to have a great conversation. So if you are here, grab your beverage of choice. I have my Slay cup, and of course it's water because I'm trying to stay a little bit more hydrated. But whatever it is, that's your business. Okay. I'm not going to be asking. So make sure you grab what you can so that way when you're here, you can just take a sip every now and again and listen to this great conversation. Good evening, Leslie, and welcome to the live show tonight. I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for being with us live tonight. Y'all, so for those that are just coming in and maybe don't know a little bit about me, I am a professional keynote speaker, a personal brand expert, an image consultant, and a 4-time author. All right. I'm a busy woman, but busy with the things that I really want to be doing in this next chapter of my life. And usually I help women. Okay. But tonight, y'all, I'm going to share who I've had the pleasure of working with, and he is a man. And so this will give us a different insight, okay, as to how we can build our personal brands and how we can use it to leverage those opportunities. Good evening, Chevy. Welcome to the Slay to Success talk show. Thank you so much for being with us live. We're in for a treat, so buckle up, y'all. Okay, so tonight, my guest, his name is, official name, Dr. Bryon L. Garner. Okay. He is a distinguished scholar and veteran. He brings a unique perspective to the intersection of race, patriotism, and military service in America. As a Black veteran who served in the United States Navy from 1984 to 1993, Dr. Garner has dedicated his academic career to exploring the complex relationships between racial identity, veteran experiences, and notions of patriotism. Dr. Garner earned his PhD in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in humanities and culture from Union Institute and University. His groundbreaking dissertation, The Intersection of Blackness, Veteranality, and American Patriotism, an ethnographic analysis of patriotism in America from the perspective of a Black veteran. He received an honorable mention for the Marvin B. Sussman Doctoral Award, recognizing its significant contribution to the field. Dr. Garner is currently completing his book that analyzes the the intersection of race, patriotism, and veteran identity. It's a lot. I'll just say that, okay? There's a lot that's going on, but he's about to come up and break it down. So please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Garner to the show.
How are you doing
What's
today?
happening? I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to see you. I mean, it's so we've seen each other over the past month and a half, almost 2 months span. But this time, you get to share with the audience, the audience that we've had here, what you do, why you do, and all the things. And I'm going to be taking some notes down because we have our session tomorrow. So uh, we just see, how this all goes. But I know you're going to slay it. Okay. So please, okay, tell the people, if you will, a little bit about yourself and your journey as it's gotten to you today.
Well, grew up originally in Gary, Indiana. So Midwest boy, but I joined the Navy in 1984. Ended up in San Diego, where I went to boot camp. Served my career there in San Diego. One of the things that happened to me along my journey in the military was trying to make sense of what it meant to be a part of something, but then also not a part of something. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that, for example, when I came back from the Gulf War in 1991, within a few months of that event was another significant event that happened in 1991, which was the Rodney King incident.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the context for me trying to wrestle with what it meant to be black in this space meaning the military. So one day I was in the admin office at my unit, and then the executive officer came in, and he had a guy in LA County Sheriff's uniform right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in there, and there's two other white sailors in there, and so he walks into the office, turns left facing me, and says, "There he is, get him." And I'm sitting here, I'm frozen, and it turns out it was a joke at my expense. And so that gave that was the context of what was going on for me in the military. This idea that I could be in the Navy, but then not really a part of the Navy, where race was something that was a prescient thing, for about my experience. So I spent a lot of time trying to make sense of what it meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
Incidents like that. That was just one of many, but that was the one that I held on to that really triggered me wanting to begin my journey with my graduate work.
Yeah. So we have a lot of commonalities. One, I was not raised in Indiana, but spent about 4 years um, for the second stint. Kokomo, Indiana is where I
Right.
claim to
Okay.
to come from. So we have that, and then being in the military and being Black in the
Yeah.
military and having some situations that have occurred where I just didn't really think about it too much until, we started to talk, and there were
Mhm.
so many stories that I started to go back to, some
Mhm.
situations thinking, oh, wow, you know, and and it does kind of get you into a way of thinking, is this how they think about me? Like,
Mhm.
I'm supposed
Yeah.
to be in here in the institution where I thought there was going to be fair, equitable,
Right.
and people will have the same types of rights, if you will, but yet and still, it still exists, right? The comments, maybe even the virility, I call it, of
Mhm.
having to be in a role where you're having to share leadership skills and all those things, and still just don't get the right response, if you will.
Right.
So you
Well,
say,
it's in a lot of ways, it's the fallacy of meritocracy, right? We were
mm,
told that in the military, hey, look, you work hard, you get, you get great evals, you get your medals, and all of that, and you're able to move up in rank.
right.
But then we find out that no, some of us did and some of us didn't, and it
Mm,
depended on how well we were able to play the game, or as I've written about, how close we were to that archetype that I've shared with you about.
Yeah. So, when you got out, okay,
Mhm.
and got out of service and you went into the government space,
Yeah.
right? So before that was in the postal world,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that experience
Mhm.
because I found that to be fascinating too.
Well, first of all, I discharged from the Navy in August 1993. This was at the height of the drawdown, post Cold War. And in San Diego, where I was stationed, there were a lot of us getting out. There were thousands of us being discharged or retired, forced into retirement per month, and it was a recession then.
Hmm.
So it was a tough time. I was fortunate enough to apply to work at the Postal Service, and I'm not ashamed to say I hated every second of that. That time. I ended up being with them for 8 years, and that was 8 years the hard way. When
Yeah.
that clock rang in the morning, I couldn't smack it hard enough. Um, and it was just. I mean, the post office for some people is a great job and all of that, and to those who appreciate it, I all my best to them,
Right.
but I did not like being a pack mule for the last eight, for
Mm,
those 8 years.
yeah. And as you were telling me, it was like that's where all dreams die,
Yeah, right. Like I don't want to go in the post office now to buy stamps. I just don't. It just takes me back. But one of the most painful things for me about it was that it was also a time of personal transition, getting out of the military. So that entire period of time, which was 8 to 10 years, it was my transition out of the military and into this civilian world that I had not been a part of for a long while. And military transition, is a difficult transition. There have been many studies on this where, it's not so much about the PTSD and all of this, but it's really having your entire universe deconstructed
right.
and trying to figure out what's next. It's something that's very difficult for a lot of veterans. Some fold their uniforms up and, they're good to go. But others of us, have some real serious challenges.
Yeah. I know a lot of my peers who, you know, tell me all the time, they're, how are you doing this? How is this happening for you?
Yeah.
And I realize that each one of our journeys is a personalized journey, and each one of us has our own challenges. I do have challenges still, y'all. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I just don't like show up and just start doing. There are a lot of things that I think about,
Mm.
because I've been in an institution for so long, and that's just
Yes.
the way that we did it. And so now I'm having to unlearn a lot of things. And sometimes I get it the first try, but a lot of other times it's like the 10th or the 11th try. I'm like,
Right.
okay, I think I'm gonna get out of this habit, right? Because
Yeah.
we have these habits that
Yeah.
are not conducive to civilian life. Now, Leslie says what you shared happens in the corporate space as well, and I think it
Mm.
was when you were talking
Yeah.
about the comments, and how
Mhm.
people, say things to you that are inappropriate.
Yes.
I do also want to recognize that Jennifer is here in the building. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing? It's nice to see you live here on the show. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and hope you're doing well. Um, so then you transition. Okay, so that was an 8 to 10 year kind of like transition. Then you transition into the federal government, right? Or the
Mhm.
government space for a time period, and you're slowly coming out of that. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of like been here recently.
Yeah.
And when you were sharing with me the journey and you wanted to specifically talk about the race, patriotism, and veteranality, I want you
Mhm.
to explain the research, if you will, that
Mhm.
you done about this particular topic and why it's so important and passionate for you to be
Mhm.
sharing it with us tonight.
Sure. So when I first began my research on patriotism in America, one of the things that I discovered was that there was a huge gap in the scholarship. None of it centered around veteran voices, and certainly it didn't include the voices of Black veterans. So, in years of scholarship, as I'm doing research, and it's 40 years worth of studies within the psychology space. I've looked in, the philosophy discipline. I've looked in several disciplines, and nothing that included veterans in the conversation about patriotism, how we conceptualize it, which is something I think is a glaring hole in the scholarship. When I discovered that, then that obviously gave me the energy or the focus to want to bring the veteran voice to this scholarship. Now, Black veteranality is a term that I've coined. It originated as veteranality, and there's a professor in England who initially began that, and you began using that term. I use Black veteranality. Essentially, this is a lens through which we can look at the distinct experiences of Black military service members and veterans. So it's looking at our experiences through our eyes. And that's what that is. And that's something, even though it may seem like it's something simple, it is something that is significant, especially in the space of scholarship, where a lot of the perspective is still caught in what I call a white reference frame. And so to look at how we can shift the lens and reconceptualize these things is what Black veteranality brings to the table on that. So it's been, quite an adventure as I've began my, scholarly journey. And a lot of it began with just being angry in
Mhm.
2017 about what the narratives were, towards, Black people, Black men in particular at that time. This is 2017, and, the commander in chief at that time was calling, Black football players who kneeled during the national anthem, they're calling them, sons of bitches, and this type of thing.
Mhm.
And then later on in that year, there was a Black Green Beret, uh, uh, Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, and I will never forget his name. He was killed, unfortunately, with the rest of his team, but he was the only Black member of the team. And just the language around that incident, did he run away or something like that? All these narratives that were coming, to bear on that were just troubling and frustrating, especially when the commander in chief called this individual's, Sergeant Johnson's, widow, and basically said he knew what he signed up for.
Hmm.
And the reason why that stands out to me is not only for its cruelty and lack of empathy, but I juxtaposed how, this entire period of time from September 11th to now with, okay, the Pat Tillman after 9/11, and this is an NFL player who left his, pro career to join the army. And, oh, he's, this white guy, and he, fits this, this archetype. And then on the other end of that, we have Sergeant David Johnson, who's also special forces, and he volunteered, but then it's like, so what? During for his loss. And though these are things that I analyze in my writing and my scholarship, is how this juxtaposition, this paradox of patriotism, where what does it mean? What does it mean to be Black and patriotic in America? What does it mean to
Mhm.
be Black and serving a country that has not lived up to its promise for racial equality? What does it mean to be Black in this space in the military, where yes, there's a lot that we deal with. The entire time I was in the Navy, I served in a Navy that still had ships named for segregationists and
Mhm.
Confederate battles. USS Chancellorsville was named after a Civil War battle that the South won. And so these are things culturally that we have to identify and talk about and call into question. And you can only begin to see that when it's from the lens of those of us who have been marginalized.
Mm. Oof, you know, this is deep, y'all. This is a deep conversation. And I think this is a lot of reflection too, because, you know, serving for 3 decades in this environment, you know, I think that for me, even though I was exposed to it and it was directly, you know, the comments were always pointed to me as you can't possibly, you know, be in this role. You can't possibly lead us. Second guessing, gaslighting, microaggressions, all the things. I still wanted to serve.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know where exactly that came from. Maybe it was because my dad served in the military for 23 years. And my husband, he was serving at the same time. And we were just proud to be, you know, proud to wear the uniform amidst still. And I can't even imagine what it was like years ago,
Right.
you know, when they had segregated troops or
Mm-hmm.
platoons, you
Mm-hmm.
know, where they could not serve with others. They had to serve by themselves alone. So, you know, Chevy's like, this is, she's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I just tell you right now, this really gets us to thinking. She also served for
Mm-hmm.
22 years in the Air Force. And Leslie, her father served in the military. And so she has been a quote unquote, you know, dependent, if you will. But she understands the system and
Mm-hmm.
how, you know, it could prevent you from even appreciating the country at its core. So how, you
Hey,
know, how do you get past these things, these thoughts, you know?
I first of all, I had to do a lot of self reflection, but then I also interviewed a lot of Black veterans for my book, and to the person, they all were proud of their service. I am proud of my service. I'm proud of my family's service. So, we are a part of that part of the population where service was something that is an important value.
Mhm.
Okay, to put it in context, the Council for Foreign Relations uh, had did a demographic study of the military and the veteran community as well. There's only like 18 million veterans today, and
Mhm.
that's from World War II to present, which means that's about 6% of the population. 6% of the population is connected to the military in some way. That means
Mhm.
94% of people have no idea. And so the thread, the through line of just this culture of service is something that a lot of people miss.
Mhm.
So how do we get through it? It's we are of that community of people who have served, and the reason for the service has been very important as we look through history and we analyze, especially Black military service. It started out just for equal citizenship.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, it was just men, but there were men and women who were fighting in the Civil War, Black men and women in particular. But they were fighting before they were even citizens.
Mm.
And so what went on after 1865 was more of this fighting for equal citizenship, fighting for um, equal, well, masculinity was a strong theme then as well. Fighting for just my manhood,
Mm.
and things of that nature. As you move on through the 20th century, economics becomes a part of it, joining the military and the opportunities that came from a military career, or such as obviously middle class lifestyle, a
Yeah.
chance to get out of where you grew up, a chance to get education through GI Bill benefits, an opportunity to buy a home through VA benefits, and also it was this door, this access to upward mobility that was also an impetus for a lot of us, or a lot of our family members, to join the military as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, yeah, it got me out of Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
there was nothing there in Gary. I mean, yes, the steel mills were there, but the industry had taken a turn,
Yeah.
and so all the adults had lost their jobs. And so joining the military was my opportunity to have my education, and to get out of this depressed area. So so there's a lot of complex reasons why we've joined, why we've served, um, but then I think that for those of us who stayed in and made it a career, it becomes even more meaningful, as far as why we served and what the motivations were. There's a reason why you did 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, it was, sense of, certainly culture, coming from a culture of service, but a
Yeah.
sense of duty, sense of
Yeah.
pride.
Yeah.
Um, but understanding, though, that the real context is there's only 2.2 million Black veterans. So one
Mm.
of very few.
Yeah. And I never really thought of it in that way. Yeah, I knew it was a sense of duty and sense of pride, but more importantly, like you said, I wanted to do better
Mhm.
for myself.
Yeah.
I wanted something that I could call as I did it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm putting the effort in to serve. I'm going to all these different places. My performance is,
Mhm.
being recognized. I feel like I am a part of, but in reality, there was a lot of external factors
Yeah.
that were playing against me.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if I wanted to be challenged in a way.
Yeah.
Like, come for me and see
Yeah.
what you're gonna get. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
taught me all these things. You
Right.
taught me all this training and
Yes.
strategies and so forth. Now I'm going to use it
Right.
to make sure that I can continue to, get a paycheck, if you will,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
still be able to say I'm representative of the country. So, one of the things that I really want you to share is about moral injury. I think
Mm.
that is something that really resonated with me the most
Mhm.
as we were talking. So, tell us a little bit about how moral injury plays out.
Sure. Moral injury, essentially, it's an assault on on our internal framework about our sense of right and wrong. That's what it is in just a basic explanation. And when I write about moral injury, I talk about it from the perspective of how race has played into that. And there have been several studies that have begun the conversation about how uh, military members of color and ethnic, military members are more likely to experience moral injury due to their race, due to their ethnicity. I would extend it. No, there's no scholarship saying it, but I would extend it also to women, in the sense of being, just being in this space that's very paternalistic, and really not, still challenged with accepting women in the space.
Yeah.
Um, so what happens is, here's an example. This I wrote about this in my dissertation. I gave an example that said, okay, there's of course it's a Navy reference. So you're
Yeah,
standing on
of
the bridge of
course.
a ship. It's one black officer with three other officers, and there's a conversation about changing the names of ships because of you know the name for they're commemorating Confederates, the Confederacy and that type of thing. And so the white officers are talking. One is saying, "Oh well, how far the usual woke conversation," or I'll put that in quotes. But then and the black officer is actually silent, and the commanding officer is sitting there. He's listening to these officers talk, and he's saying, "Well, this is just policy." But then another white officer is saying, "Well, there can't be racism because look," and he points to the black officer and say, "Hey, look, you went to the academy and you've moved up in rank, so there's no problem here. Why are we bringing up these things from the past?" And moral injury is being in that position of having to defend why these racial policies are happening. There are
Mm,
better examples out there, but that's what I used. And that when you're put in the position of having to defend why we're talking about racial equity, and things of that nature, yeah, that's moral injury, because what you're saying then is that what my humanity doesn't matter. You're saying that that you're already identifying me as other in this space, in this conversation, and so now I feel a certain way, and that happens often. And when an officer I interviewed was in the submarine community,
mhm.
and he was talking about going to a conference, and he was there at the conference. He had the people that he knew that he considered friends,
Yeah,
but he was in a situation where, okay, meeting other people, and in the broader community, more senior people, um, those connections were harder for him to make because they weren't as open to him. And so,
yeah.
but what he did notice was that there was a natural connection to everyone around him and not including him. And so he felt
Mm,
isolated. So it's the sense of isolation that we feel. And again, I want to, go back to what we were saying earlier, is that it's not that everything is bad. What we're talking
right.
about is an accumulation of these very small things that we actually, many of us actually just tough it out through.
Mhm.
What I'm calling attention to is that, okay, let's talk about these things. We have to have a real conversation about what it means to be Black in this space. Because until we are talking about it, until we talk about what patriotism means in a sense that's more inclusive, then we're going about it all wrong. And it's always going to be in this, like it is now, conceptualized as this exclusive space instead of inclusive. And
Mm,
so we have to think about these things. And patriotism, as it's currently conceptualized, kind of feeds that.
yeah,
And the reason why I say that is because it's filled with these archetypes, these examples that others are measured against. You
right.
know, for example, I mean, just pick any military movie or TV show, and you think, okay, who are the central characters? Who are the main characters? What do they look like? Um, and and then you understand what the problem is with that. It's usually a white male. In this period of time since 9/11, usually special forces.
Yep.
All the movies and all the TV shows are about SEAL Team this or whatever. Well, that's only a small part of the military.
Yeah.
And but oddly enough, it's also exclusively white. There
Yeah.
are black members in the special forces, but do you hear about them?
Nope. I know
You
I
may,
don't,
right. You may see
you know,
them. You may see them in as background
supporting.
characters, supporting
Mhm.
characters, that type of thing. So what's the imagery? And so that becomes moral injury. Going back to
Mhm.
what we were talking about with that, it's like, wait a minute. When I was growing up reading books about World War II, I was almost a teenager before I found out that, oh, black people were in this too. Every book I read, every book I read was like, oh yeah, these people, yeah, it was all white people who
Yeah,
volunteered and who were angry that we were attacked at, at Pearl Harbor. There were black people, millions of black people. I believe the number is like 11 million black people served in the military during World War II. And and look, how often do you hear that? Yes, you hear about things like the Tuskegee Airmen, um, but I want to talk about my conversation about patriotism is more than about specific units.
yeah,
It's about the concept of our attachment to this country. Why did we feel that way, especially the 1940s?
yeah.
Why would during Jim Crow a bunch of people say, "Yeah, you know what? This is my country too." Well, so what does that mean? We see, and so we don't talk about that. Um,
Mm,
we in the 60s we talked about it as far as this ain't my country and we're out, we're out. For good reason. So the
mhm.
black nationalism conversation, was an important conversation to have, but there's also a black patriotism conversation to have as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I think this again makes me wonder about so many different things and having the conversations being replayed again,
Yeah.
you know, and thinking, I didn't say anything,
Yeah.
because I felt like if I said something, then I would get attacked or I would get the side eye or,
Hmm.
oh, we're not talking about you.
Hmm.
Okay. We're talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
the rest of them over here. And people just don't even think about what they're saying. They just be talking. And
Yeah.
even I knew when George Floyd was
Hmm.
killed,
Hmm.
I was now the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be speaking on behalf of all the black and brown people
Right.
in a leadership role.
Right.
And it wasn't fair,
Right.
because they wanted to make sure that I took care. Like
Hmm.
you can connect to them more than we can. So you
Right.
need to take care of them. And I looking back at that situation, I was way in over my head with it,
Yeah.
And so uh, again, there's these little incidences that pop up. And so
Hmm.
Chevy here says she never looked at the numbers. Okay. When you were quoting 18 million
Hmm.
veterans, she was so focused on doing her job, taking
Yeah.
care of her people, and executing the mission.
Right.
This is a very insightful conversation. Yeah.
No,
Because
and, 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 and and thank you for pointing that out, Chevy, because yes, that's what a lot of us did. That's why once I got out, I was on a search about making sense of what happened to me. When I got out, I dealt with it for years. What happened to me? What was this experience? I didn't have the words for it. I didn't. And it took me 20, 30 years and to finally be able to talk about these incidents. The incident I opened up with about after the Rodney King event, incident, and the officer coming in, pointing me out and all. It took me 30 years to talk about that. I held that inside.
mm,
I did not talk about it because, yes, to Chevy's point, it was about, okay, well, let me get through this, but I'm working in admin. I'm focused on my job. I'm focused on taking
right.
care of my people. I'm focused on being a good sailor. At that same time, I was also sailor of the quarter. At that same time, I'm the right hand man to the commanding officer. On the enlisted side, of course, but I'm this indispensable, member of the team. But when I got
Yeah.
out and I'm dealing with this and I'm counting on, assessing all of these experiences, I needed to make sense of it because what happened is I was carrying the weight of it and I
Mm,
began to deal with depression and anxiety and all of these things that, they manifested because I hadn't resolved my feelings about what
yeah.
had happened to me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
And I think so many of us, we have had these situations happen to us and they are unresolved.
Yeah.
right? And we are still angry, we're upset,
Hmm.
we're not quite sure where to begin to have a conversation towards healing, to really understand, we were in the moment, and we just didn't have. And what I love when you said you didn't have the words, you
Yeah.
didn't know which words to
Hmm.
use
Yeah.
when he said, get him.
Yeah.
You were just kind of like, what just happened?
Right.
And why are you saying this? Right. And I think a lot that speaks true for a lot of us. We just didn't have the words at the time. And we didn't want to make a big to do about it.
Right.
Right. So Donnell served in
Mhm.
the military. He's the CEO, founder of Veterans Growing America.
All right.
And he retired as a command sergeant major
All
in
right.
the Army. And so he's saying great conversation so much resonates with him,
Mhm.
as I knew it would,
Yeah.
because you know we all, I think, have had
Hmm.
something that
Yeah.
has happened, right? And then Chevy brought up this situation. She said, so true. We always see the white face at the forefront when we have
Yes.
so much diversity.
Hmm.
When she was assigned to PACE, she had to do a tribute for women in the military, and the white individuals who were the leads created a video that showcased white women and myself. And another Black woman, retired Chief Master Sergeant, had to bring it to their attention.
Yeah.
Links, where is the diversity at?
Yes. That's right.
And I don't know where that often comes from,
Hmm.
to just go with the majority and not look to see how many diverse voices. And it's not even about the color, even sometimes, right? It's about thoughts and opinions. But I know we're talking about diversity, race, if you
Hmm.
will, because it all plays into.
Well, see, this is why when I have the conversation about patriotism, I talk about things being ensconced in a white reference frame,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there's only one way that that it is currently looked at. That's why you see a lot of the images centered around a white male or a white woman, but more often a white male. And then the origin stories, the origin story of, okay, bunch of gray haired dudes sitting around the table signing a document. All of a sudden, we have a country, and the greatness of them, and all of that. When the truth about the origin story of this country is that, for me, I would say it begins with Frederick Douglass. It begins
Yeah.
with someone who was enslaved and then freed himself and then wrestled with, what does this Constitution mean to me? He went from, I'm not a citizen of this country, and your Constitution doesn't mean anything to me, to finally evolving through conversation, through a lot of conversation, through just assessing his own experiences. He grew to finally saying, okay, this is my country. It hasn't lived up to its you know potential just yet, but we're going to fight for it. So by
Mm.
1863, he's recruiting Black men to fight in the Massachusetts 54th
Mm-hmm.
regiment, including his sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's an origin story about what it means to be Black and patriotic in this country, because it's everything about, okay, I'm born in struggle, and I've had to struggle. I've had to come to terms with, where's my place in this thing, that this experiment that we're calling a country. What is my relationship to it? What am I willing to give and to sacrifice for it? Now,
Mm.
and where we fall with that determines a lot.
Yeah.
And but see, if that story is left out of the conversation writ large about patriotism, then we're not getting the full story. We're only getting the white story. We're only
Mm.
getting a single. I mean, and so you can also extrapolate it out. We can talk about Native Americans. We can talk about every immigrant, community that came here and served this nation. Why
Mhm.
are they not included in this origin story about our relationship with this entity, this country. So that's why this is important. So why is it stuck in, this white reference frame? Because that's the way, that's what they hold it. They say that, this is the story, and this is supposed to be the story that unites us all. When actually, I think the differences can unite us. Because if you really drill down on it, you'll find that maybe we came from different points on the compass, but we're arriving at the same destination. And it's
Yeah.
about our relationship with this country.
Yeah.
Until you
Oh my.
include that, you're going to have a problem. Until we have a truth about race, until we have a real reckoning about these images, and the iconography, how it's employed. The American flag should never have been employed by police departments as, oh yeah, the thin blue line, and this type of thing, because now that's separating. The flag is supposed to be, out of many, one. It's supposed
Right.
to be this uniting symbol. And for those of us who served, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But when a segment of the population takes that and says this is ours, well, okay, that's a problem. What are
Yeah.
you really saying? And then you're going to deploy it in communities of color at a time when there's a significant problem. So how the iconography is employed, the reference frame, the failure to include other origin stories in the entire makeup is what I'm pushing. This is why I'm opening this conversation about what does it mean to be Black and patriotic.
Yeah.
Because right now it seems like we're either one or the other. You're either patriotic or you're Black.
Mm.
And that's the paradox. And there's a significant amount of studies that have shown that is the psychology of it. I've looked at 40 years of scholarship of studies in psychology, and all of it shows that patriotism rests in this idea of whiteness, and it weaves it in. And so even for people coming here from other countries, other ethnicities, they think of Americanism as American identity and patriotism as the white reference
Yeah.
frame, not including even them. That's problematic.
Yeah. It is. And I tell you, um, I'm just sitting here, y'all. And if you're anything like me, I'm just going over in my mind, like, what is happening here? And I have to really think about, what it is for me and what does it mean for me,
Yeah.
and that is like you said, complex,
Yeah.
deep. There's an array of emotions from so many areas that I just been like a part of. And I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all. So, okay, Leslie, she wrote here for us, conversation like these are meaningful because they make us realize that we are not experiencing these incidences
Mhm.
alone. We don't even speak about these incidents, which
Mhm.
causes so much trauma. The
Yes.
carrots that are dangled in front of us keeps us in internal bondage.
Mm.
As Black
Mm.
people, we are always told to move, to do move, okay, to move and take it and make and move forward. So
Mhm.
basically, just
Yeah.
it is what it is,
Mhm.
and move along, because if not, you
Mhm.
won't get a promotion, you won't get the
Right.
opportunity, all the things that go with that. So um yeah, I think these conversations are needed more so now than ever because of the temperament of what's happening in our world, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's going to change the dynamic of, patriotism. What does it mean to serve our country? A lot of people are going to start questioning that for themselves,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know? And whereas before, like I said, I wasn't really in it. I was like Chevy, just head down doing the work. But I think more times now, people are going to start asking
Mhm.
themselves, what am I doing here?
Right.
What is it that I am, um, like for my life? Like,
Hmm.
why did I choose to serve
Yeah.
in the military?
Well, and here's a question too. I mean, how many of us encourage our children to join based on our
Mm,
experiences? I've spoken to
mm,
many veterans who said, you know what, I'm proud I served. I'm glad I served. But you know what, I'm not going to tell my son or daughter to join because
mm,
of just the complexity of what it is, especially today. We have a very, what we have is, a doubling down on this very white male view of especially the military, and it's very politicized. And the hallmark of our American military was its separation from politics and
mm-hmm.
blurring the lines, almost forever, almost
Yeah,
forever.
yeah. Yeah, and that's hard because you're supposed to be bipartisan, and when you're sitting in the seats and that's all they're talking about,
Right.
and the divide is happening. All right, the divide is happening in the world. The divide is happening in the military, and which is a very small part, but they have a big and huge role to play, um, if called upon.
One of the things I just read within the last couple of days is that the transition team is thinking of, they're making a list of the officers who were involved in the Afghanistan withdrawal. And they're looking at whether or not they want to court martial them, retired or not. So if they're
What?
retired, they'll recall them back to, to active duty to court martial them. Now, um, that is just disturbing. All right, it's vindictive, it's wrong. First of all, let's understand, those of us in the military understand that, okay, from 010 on down, I follow the orders of the commander in chief. That's what I did. So why would you martial me for following lawful orders?
Hmm.
And let's drill down on it, that okay, really it was the policy between the two presidents that
Yeah.
really, you know, uh, made a mess of that situation. It's not the military's fault, but what does it do? It got votes. Things like that got votes. And again, I point out the numbers. Well, yeah, it's easy to beat up on the military if 94% of the people in this nation have never served. As long as it's 6% of us who have served, then yeah, okay, yeah, we're an easy punching bag because no one
Mm,
knows really about the culture except for what they see
mm,
on TV.
right.
And that's a problem. But I also want to throw out another number for you. You were talking about when we were talking about not wanting to report. A Syracuse University study from 2022 indicated that 45% of Black veterans did not want to report any incidents because they felt that it would affect their career. 45%. That's almost half.
I'll be in the 45%.
And that's significant. So, to the point that was made earlier, that we're looking up from, our having our head in the foxhole, and we're looking around and saying, wait, I'm not the only one that has
Yeah.
gone through this. And or like me, I spent years trying to make sense of it, and then I'm finding data like this, and it feels validating to talk it out, with other
Yeah.
veterans. Okay, all right, it wasn't Bryon and his bad luck or something.
Yeah.
It was something that we all experienced, and let's also add to the fact that we were resilient through.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that part too. That all right, we soldiered through. We toughed it out. We kept moving forward. Most of us, some of us, and we all know a member that they lost it,
Mhm.
got kicked out, got
Yeah.
drugs, alcohol, whatever it was, some kind of way they were chewed up by the system and spit out. Then you think about, other things like veteran homelessness, veteran suicide, and all of these. Now you have a much different context, especially if they're of color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that okay, because you think about, okay, transition is hard. That's just in general for veterans. But then if you've been a veteran of color, if you're a woman veteran,
Mm-hmm.
how about that? And transitioning out, you don't have anyone to talk to, or hardly anyone to talk to that understands what happened to you.
Yeah.
Um, and then you're also in the position where maybe you don't have the words to even describe it. How do you describe to a civilian, all the complexity of what happened to you in 4, 20, or 30 years? Um, it's a lot. And so what do some people do? They check out.
Mm-hmm.
And the veteran suicide rate is high. I was among them. I was at one time suicidal. I was hospitalized. So coming to terms with these things, is life or death. It's extremely important. So we have to have these conversations.
We have to. We really do. I mean, and we need to have more of these, like to really understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
we do.
proud of you, Dr.
Uh,
Gardner. I really
Thank you.
am. Y'all don't even know, okay? Really know. But, you sharing your story, being very open, transparent about what you do and why you do it just brings me joy to see another veteran be able to stand firm in what you want to share and be the authority. Didn't he do good, y'all? Like, I'm just saying right now, he was just laying it on for us, you know. So I know we're reaching the top of the hour, and Leslie says, thank you for taking the baton on these conversations, because this is not easy. And it's not going to be easy because people have a tendency to be like, no, we don't want to talk about that. Like, why are you
Right,
bringing these things up?
right.
But it's important that we share because, from what we see, we continue to play the same story out over and over and over again.
Yeah,
All right. Expecting the same results. And
right.
so Chevy wants to know, how was your experience working with me?
Oh, absolutely awesome. I cannot say enough. First of all, sitting down across the table with another veteran was about the most important thing. That made everything else that I had to do amazing. Just a lot easier. Being able to, now I'm able to just unfold and share ideas, share experiences. So these last 6, 8 weeks, is it six
Yeah.
6 weeks?
I think it was like
Has,
almost 8 weeks. Yeah.
I felt more energized to pour myself into the different steps that we went through. Coming up with my origin story. Okay, what are my values? How do I want to appear in the space? All of these things that are, they're tough questions, but they're made easier when I'm guided through it by someone like you, and just amazing. You're easy to talk with, especially. But no, you really guided me through this process, and I really can't say enough. I'm grateful.
Man, I'll tell you what. I'm grateful because you selected me. And I was out there saying women, I do women, y'all, and then I get you here and I'm like, wait a minute. What and you were a perfect client. And I'll tell you that because you did the work. Okay. Y'all, this is no shortcut. There's no fixes to doing what you need to do to have the confidence, the
Yeah,
clarity, and the focus on this is your calling. Like,
yeah,
this is what you are supposed to be doing, right? Like, talking about this, I can't talk about these things like that. You have done the research and you have a platform. And by the way, tell the audience some of the great news that you shared with me the last session about what's happening for you.
Right. Well, I recently got hired by the University of California, Irvine to be a lecturer in their Veteran Studies program. So I'm really excited about that because it's the coming together of my research and then my life experiences. And for this program, Veteran Studies is a new academic discipline. Yeah, I'm from GI, the region. But so yeah, so it's the merging of my life experiences and my scholarship. So I'm really excited about that. So that will begin in the spring. What's also happening is that there's a Veteran Studies Association that it's veterans coming together in the academic space. We promote and publish scholarship about our experiences, and this is across all disciplines. So I've been elected to the executive board of the Veteran Studies Association. I'm really excited about that. It's there aren't that many of us, and I mean Black people, involved in it. There are some, but we need more. And so we're going to bring veteran narratives and veteran perspectives into the academic space even more so. So we're excited about that. So, and then lastly, I am planning an event for May 3rd, which is a celebration of Black military service and patriotism. So right now, the tentative title of it is Heritage of Heroes. And so we're going to be, we're going to have an event. I'll more to follow on the location and everything, but it's going to be May 3rd. And the idea is that we're going to have members of the community come out, meet these veterans. We're also going to invite active duty military because May is Military Appreciation Month. We're also going to have the VA there. The VA is going to have mobile vans there. So they're going to have presentations about the PACT Act and other benefits that the VA has. And if you are a veteran and you haven't filed a claim, they'll help you get started with the claim there. Or if you want to check on your claim, you can check on it there. Or I believe there will be counseling. We're working on that. So this event is going to be great. I'm really excited about it, and would invite everyone to come out and bring your neighbors and bring your families, and let's celebrate us. Let's celebrate Black military service.
Look, y'all, I'm telling you, this is just like, I don't know. For me, I just get so excited because I'm like, he's out here doing the thing. I'm not gonna cuss here on Sunday nights. So I'm just saying, but you're doing it, okay? So there's a couple more questions here. First of all, we've got Chevy said, "Why would you recommend others to work with me?" She is on it. Maybe she wants to work with me.
You know, I would highly recommend others, working with you because one, simply, I just had a good experience, but I do like what you bring to the space, the counseling, the listening ear, the empathy, but also the push.
Yeah.
You're very professional, very businesslike, but it's also we've been able to sit and have conversations. Um, so when we met, it was about business, but and it challenged me, but it was also a very good experience. It wasn't something like, okay, I need to do my homework. Oh my God, because there is homework
There is.
and lots of it. but but it's all to the good, and I felt motivated to do it because I felt heard, I felt seen, and that's something that is you don't come about that all the time. You don't come about it easily. The connection. So that's the most important thing about this is the intangible. It's the connection, and it's being heard and being understood, and that made everything else fall into line.
Thank you. And again, like I said, it was just an absolute pleasure. So y'all, this has been so good. So Donnell says these are tough conversations during tough times.
Yes,
Thanks. I'm one of the 45%.
yes,
So
yeah.
Yeah, we know, like we all fall into that, right? Um, I look forward to seeing you on the TEDx stage soon. So Leslie put
Thank
that out
you.
there. I can't wait to see it either. So Lindsay, she says yes, she loves it. So thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. And Lindsay has been on the track as you too. So she's part of the
Awesome.
journey,
Awesome.
and she's really getting herself out there and getting her nonprofit notice. So it's absolutely wonderful. Chevy says, "This is exciting. I wish you nothing but success, Dr. Gardner."
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
love y'all. Y'all are just so
Thank you.
good to my guests. Oh, look at there.
Nell, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's connect.
Donnell,
Connect.
that's a big man right there. So he said, if you don't have location, he'll donate his space.
Awesome.
So yeah, get in touch with Donnell. He is so
Absolutely.
so good about helping the veteran community and amplifying our voices. So thank you, Donnell, for that. And then Sidra says, thank you, Dr. Gardner. So, Sidra, thank you so much for showing up live with us on Facebook. I see you, girl. So, thank you so much for taking the time out. And so we've been here for about an hour, y'all. A little bit over an hour, actually. And I knew this was going to happen because this is, again, was going to be a deep conversation, great conversation to have. Um, so, my last question for you, Dr. Gardner, is at your 80th birthday party, if God gives you those years, what
Mm.
would you want your family and friends to say about you?
Thank you for following your dreams. It's been a beautiful thing to watch you follow your dreams. I'm at the stage now where I'm at, I've come to the end of my federal career. So I've
Hmm.
done the things that I had to do to make money and go to school. Now I'm doing what I want to do when I grow up.
That's right.
And that is having conversations with veterans, bringing their stories forward, sharing my story, and in whatever way that is, whether, certainly as with the upcoming book, documentaries are planned, these other events, but it's celebrating Black military service, that I contributed my part to that, celebrating us. That's what I'd
Mm,
like to look back on and feel good about. So I think that's what I'd like.
yeah. And I love that you put it in there. All right, y'all. So look for his upcoming book. What is the title and when will it be published?
The manuscript will be done in January, and it probably will be published later next year, early in the following year. Fractured Faith is the name of the book.
Mm, wow. And y'all better go buy it, right? If you're in this space, we got to support one another, especially of reading other story, so that way we can, help our next generation, our future generation, to understand that all stories weren't just the same story as people like to have said it is. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, a guest on
Thank
this
you.
show, to really adding value and really explaining to us about race, patriotism, and even veteranality, which I had never heard before. Um, and it really caused me to pause and think about what patriotism really means to me as a Black woman veteran. So thank y'all. I do want to recognize our guests for being here live. So River of Life Fellowship, thank you so much. Leslie, Chevy, Jennifer, Donnell. We're scrolling down, y'all. Scrolling down. Lindsay, Sidra, and Regina. Thank you so much for being here live with us. And we'll be back here, y'all, next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have yet another Slay Amazing guest to feature. So, as you all know, the last final words. Dr. Garner, you have any last final words before we step out?
I just want to say thank you to you for this opportunity, and also thank you to the guests. It's been a good conversation. Thank you for the feedback.
Absolutely. You're welcome. So keep on slaying until you can't slay no more. And we will see you all next Sunday. Have a slay amazing week. And we're gonna see you later. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.